Chitty was the son of a widow, Mama Nkechi, who sold roasted corn by the roadside to feed her 4 children. Their home was a small mud house with a rusted zinc roof that sang loudly when the rains came. The walls were decorated with old newspaper pages to cover the cracks, and their only luxury was a small radio that worked only when you hit it just right. Every morning, while other boys his age still slept, Chitty would wake at 4 o'clock, fetch water from the distant stream, help his mother prepare corn for roasting, and then rush to school. His uniform was patched in so many places that the original color was hard to determine. His shoes were held together with wire, and his school bag was a torn fertilizer sack his mother had sewn into something usable. But Chitty's poverty never dimmed the brightness in his eyes. He was known throughout Akwogo for 3 things: his brilliant mind that made teachers shake their heads in wonder, his kindness that made even the cruelest people soften, and his hopeless love for the most beautiful girl in the village. Her name was Adiz. Adiz was the only daughter of Chief Okonkwo, the wealthiest man in Akwogo and 3 neighboring villages. Chief Okonkwo owned vast farmlands, a fleet of commercial vehicles, a mansion that stood like a castle behind tall brick walls, and enough influence to make politicians seek his favor. Adiz had grown up wrapped in silk and gold. Her mother, Lolo Okonkwo, dressed her in the finest fabrics from the city, Ankara prints so colorful they seemed to capture sunsets, lace materials that shimmered like moonlight on water, and jewelry that announced her presence before she even appeared. Her coral beads were authentic and heavy. Her gold bangles clinked musically as she walked, and her shoes were always imported, never touching the muddy village paths because she was always driven in her father's air-conditioned car. She was undeniably beautiful. Her skin was smooth like shea butter, dark and glowing with health. Her eyes were large and expressive, framed by long lashes. Her smile could make men forget their own names. But her beauty was matched only by her pride. Adiz, her mother would tell her while braiding her hair with gold thread, "You are not like these common village girls. Your feet must never know suffering. The man you marry must be able to maintain your standard. Never, ever settle for poverty. Poverty is a disease that will destroy your beauty and kill your spirit." Adiz absorbed these words like dry ground absorbs rain. She measured every young man by his father's wealth, his family status, his car, his house. Love, to her, was a luxury only rich people could afford. Poor people, she believed, did not deserve love. They deserved pity at best, contempt at worst. Chitty had loved Adiz since they were children in primary school. He remembered the day she had shared her lunch with him when he had none. He remembered how she had laughed at his jokes during break time. He remembered how, for one brief moment in their childhood, before wealth created walls between them, they had been friends. But as they grew older, the distance between them became an ocean. Adiz attended the expensive private secondary school in the city, while Chitty struggled through the village public school. She came home during holidays in expensive clothes, while he wore the same 3 shirts rotated throughout the week. She spoke English with a polished accent, while he still had the thick village accent that made city people laugh. Yet Chitty's heart refused to listen to reason. It beat only for Adiz. When Chitty finished secondary school as the best student, he did not have money for university. Instead, he learned carpentry from an old craftsman and started making wooden furniture to support his family. His hands became rough and calloused, his body lean and strong from hard labor. He would work from dawn until darkness fell, crafting beautiful chairs, tables, and door frames that people praised but paid little for. One evening, after selling a dining set and making what he considered good money, 30,000 Naira, Chitty made a decision that would change his life forever. He would go to Chief Okonkwo's house and ask for permission to court Adiz. His friends thought he had gone mad. "Chitty, my brother," his best friend Emeka said, placing a concerned hand on his shoulder, "that girl's earrings cost more than what you make in a year. Her father will have you beaten and thrown out. Please forget this madness." But love is the sweetest madness. Chitty bathed thoroughly, scrubbing away the sawdust and sweat. He wore his best outfit, a plain blue shirt his mother had bought him 3 years ago for a wedding, and his only pair of trousers without patches. He borrowed shoes from his cousin, shoes that were slightly too big and made a slapping sound when he walked. He oiled his hair until it shone, looked at himself in the cracked mirror, and set out for Chief Okonkwo's mansion. The walk of shame. The journey to Chief Okonkwo's house felt like walking to his own execution. Villagers who saw him asked where he was going dressed up like that, and when he told them, they looked at him with pity and amusement. That poor boy is going to disgrace himself, they whispered. The mansion stood on a hill, surrounded by a high wall painted pristine white. The iron gate was decorated with Chief Okonkwo's initials in gleaming brass. Chitty's hands trembled as he rang the bell. A gateman in a crisp uniform appeared, looking Chitty up and down with undisguised disdain. "What do you want?" the man barked. "Please, sir, I wish to see Adiz. I am Chitty, son of Mom and Ketchy. I grew up in this village. I have something important to discuss with her." The gateman laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that echoed off the walls. "You? A poor carpenter with borrowed shoes wants to see the chief's daughter?" He spat near Chitty's feet. "Do you know how many wealthy men come here asking for her hand? Men with cars, with mansions, with businesses? What do you have? With shavings in your hair and the smell of poverty on your skin?" Chitty's face burned with shame, but he stood his ground. "Please, just tell her I am here. If she refuses to see me, I will leave and never return." The gateman studied him, perhaps seeing something in Chitty's eyes, desperation mixed with dignity. He shrugged. "Fine. But when she humiliates you, remember I warned you." Chitty waited outside the gate for 20 agonizing minutes. Inside the compound, he could hear laughter, music, and the sound of a generator powering the mansion. The contrast between that world and his own had never felt more painful. Finally, the gate opened. Adiz stepped out, and Chitty's breath caught in his throat. She wore a stunning emerald green Ankara gown with golden embroidery that caught the evening sun. Her neck was adorned with multiple layers of coral beads. Gold earrings dangled from her ears, and her wrists were heavy with bangles. Her hair was woven into an elaborate style, decorated with gold accessories. She looked like royalty, like something from a dream, like everything Chitty could never afford to even touch. Behind her, several house servants had gathered, and even Chief Okonkwo's wife, Lolo Okonkwo, had come out to the veranda to watch, her arms crossed over her expensive lace blouse. "Chitty," Adiz said, her voice cold as morning mist. "What are you doing at my father's gate?" Chitty swallowed hard. His mouth was dry, his heart hammering so loud he was sure everyone could hear it. "Adiz, I have come to speak with you about my feelings. I know I'm not wealthy. I know I cannot give you the luxuries you're used to. But I have loved you since we were children. My heart belongs only to you. I am hardworking. I am honest. I am poor." Adiz interrupted, her voice sharp and loud, meant for everyone to hear. "You're poor, Chitty. That is what you are. Look at yourself." She gestured at him with disgust. "Look at those borrowed shoes that don't even fit you properly. Look at that faded shirt. Look at your carpenter's hands, rough and dirty." The servants tittered. Lolo Okonkwo smiled approvingly at her daughter's performance. Chitty felt something breaking inside his chest. "Adiz, please, a man's worth is not in his pocket, but in his." "His what?" Adiz stepped closer, her eyes blazing with cruelty. "His heart? His character? Is that what you were going to say? Tell me, Chitty, can I wear your character to weddings? Can I drive your good heart to the market? Can your honesty buy me gold jewelry?" Tears pricked Chitty's eyes, but he refused to let them fall. Adiz continued, her voice rising, enjoying the attention. "You want to know what I see when I look at you? I see a future of suffering. I see myself waking at dawn to fetch water. I see my hands becoming rough from washing clothes in the stream. I see hunger, struggle, shame. I see everything I've been raised to avoid." She moved even closer, her expensive perfume filling his nostrils, a scent he could never afford. "Go back to your wooden planks and your sawdust, Chitty. Find a poor village girl who will be grateful for the little you have to offer. I am Chief Okonkwo's daughter. I will marry a man who can maintain me in the manner I deserve. A man with cars, with businesses, with a mansion bigger than my father's. You are not that man. You will never be that man. Do you understand me? The servants burst into open laughter. The gateman shook his head with satisfaction. Lolo Okonkwo called out from the veranda, "Adiz, come inside. Do not waste your time on poverty." Chitty stood there, frozen, as Adiz turned with a flourish of her expensive gown and walked back into the compound. The gate slammed shut in his face with a metallic clang that sounded like a verdict. He stood there for a long moment, unable to move. Then, slowly, his legs carried him away from that gate, away from that mansion, away from the girl who had just shattered his heart into dust. As he walked home through the village, people stared. News traveled fast. By the time he reached his mother's small house, everyone knew. Chitty, the poor carpenter, had dared to reach for the chief's daughter and had been crushed for his audacity. The night that forged steel. That night, Chitty did not eat. He lay on his mat in the small room he shared with his two younger brothers, staring at the ceiling where moonlight filtered through the holes in the zinc roof. His mother came to sit beside him. She was a thin woman, worn down by years of struggle, but her eyes were still bright with wisdom. "My son," she said softly, her rough hand stroking his head as she had done when he was a child, "I heard what happened today." Chitty said nothing. His throat felt too tight to speak. "Let me tell you something," Mama Nkechi continued. "When your father died and left me with 4 children and nothing else, people said I would not survive. They said my children would become thieves and prostitutes. They said poverty would destroy us. But I decided that poverty would be temporary, not permanent. Hard times would shape us, not break us." She lifted his chin, forcing him to look at her. "That girl rejected you because she cannot see the future. She sees only what is in front of her eyes today. But you, my son, you must see beyond today. You must see the man you can become, not the man you are right now." Tears finally fell from Chitty's eyes. "Mama, I have nothing. How can I become more than this?" Mama Nkechi smiled, her face crinkling. "Your father used to say that a man without money is not a poor man. A man without dreams is a poor man. Do you still have dreams, Chitty?" Chitty thought about this. Even through his pain, even through his humiliation, he realized something. Yes, he still had dreams. Big ones. Dreams of building something great, of lifting his family out of poverty, of proving to himself, not to Adiz, but to himself, that he was capable of more. "Yes, Mama," he whispered. "I still have dreams." "Then you are not poor," she said firmly. "You are simply not rich yet. There's a difference." That night marked the beginning of Chitty's transformation. He made a vow to himself. He would rise so high that the entire village would have no choice but to respect him. Not for revenge. Revenge was poison, but for purpose. He would prove that a man's beginning does not determine his ending. 2 weeks later, after much thought and planning, Chitty made a difficult decision. He would leave Akwago and go to Onitsha, the big commercial city on the banks of the Niger River. His uncle, Matsi Obi, had a small shop there selling electronics, and he had once mentioned that if Chitty ever wanted to learn business, he should come. Saying goodbye to his mother was the hardest thing Chitty had ever done. "Mama, I will send money home every month," he promised, his bag, still the old fertilizer sack, packed with his few belongings. "I will make sure you and my siblings never lack anything." Mama Nkechi hugged him tightly, her small frame shaking. "Go, my son. Go and become the man I know you can be. But never forget where you come from. Never let success make you hard like those who look down on you." Chitty left Akwago at dawn, before most of the village was awake. He did not look back. Onitsha was a revelation and a shock. The market was a massive, sprawling chaos of humanity. Millions of people buying, selling, shouting, hustling. The noise was deafening. The heat was oppressive. The competition was ruthless. This was where dreams came to either flourish or die. Matsuyobi's shop was tiny, tucked between hundreds of other shops in the electronics section. It sold phone accessories, chargers, batteries, and small appliances. Matsuyobi was a short, energetic man in his 50s who moved like lightning and talked even faster. "Chitty, my nephew," he greeted him warmly. "Welcome to Onitsha. I hope you came ready to work because this city does not tolerate laziness. If you work hard here, you can make something of yourself. If you are lazy, this city will chew you up and spit you out. Which one will you be? I will work hard, Uncle, Chitty promised. And work hard he did. His days began at 5 in the morning and ended at 10 at night. He cleaned the shop, arranged goods, learned prices, observed customers, studied how his uncle negotiated, and absorbed everything like a sponge. He lived in a small room behind the shop that he shared with 3 other apprentices. They slept on mats on the concrete floor, ate 1 meal a day, and spent every other moment working. But Chitty never complained. Every time exhaustion tempted him to give up, he remembered Adi's words. You are not that man. You will never be that man. Those words became his fuel. After 6 months, Matsi Obi noticed something special about Chitty. While the other apprentices merely followed instructions, Chitty asked questions. He wanted to understand not just how to sell, but why customers bought, how to source products cheaper, how to identify quality goods, how to manage money. Chitty, Matsi Obi said one evening after closing the shop, you have the mind of a businessman, not just a shop boy. I'm going to teach you something beyond selling. And he did. Matsi Obi taught Chitty about suppliers, about import networks, about credit systems, about building relationships, about reading market trends. He taught him that business was not just about buying and selling. It was about understanding human psychology and solving problems. One day, a year after arriving in Onitsha, Chitty noticed something. Many traders were importing phone accessories from distant cities at high costs. But Chitty discovered that a factory in the industrial area of Onitsha manufactured similar products at half the price with good quality. He approached Matsi Obi with an idea. Uncle, what if we stop buying from those expensive suppliers and buy directly from the local factory? We can sell at the same price as other shops but make double the profit. Or we can sell slightly cheaper and attract more customers. Matsi Obi stared at him for a long moment, then burst into laughter. Chitty, this is why I knew you were different. Let's try your idea. They did. Within 3 months, Matsi Obi's small shop became one of the most popular in the section. Their prices were better, their quality was reliable, and customers trusted them. Matsi Obi's profits tripled. Chitty, Matsi Obi said one evening, counting the day's earnings with satisfaction, you have made me more money in 3 months than I made in 3 years. You deserve more than just food and sleeping space. From today, I will give you a percentage of the profits. This was the turning point. Chitty began earning real money. He sent most of it home to his mother, but he saved every kobo he could. He read business books borrowed from a small library nearby. He observed the wealthy traders, how they dressed, how they talked, how they negotiated, how they carried themselves. He began to transform, not just financially but mentally. His mind expanded beyond the limits of poverty. He started to see possibilities instead of obstacles. 2 years after arriving in Onitsha, armed with savings and knowledge, Chitty approached Matsi Obi with another proposal. Uncle, I want to start my own business. Not to compete with you, but to expand into something different. I want to import phones directly from abroad and sell them wholesale. Matsi Obi looked at him with pride. I have been waiting for you to say this. You have learned everything I can teach you. It is time for you to fly. I will even help you. I will introduce you to my contact in China who can supply you phones at factory prices. With his savings, a small loan from Matsi Obi, and borrowed capital from a cooperative society, Chitty placed his first import order. It was terrifying. If it failed, he would be in debt for years. The container arrived 6 weeks later. Chitty's hands trembled as he opened it. Inside were boxes and boxes of smartphones, mid-range models that were in high demand, but that most shops sold at inflated prices. Chitty's strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Sell quality phones at prices lower than competitors, build trust with retailers, and rely on volume rather than high margins per unit. He offered credit to reliable buyers, something most wholesalers refused to do. Within 6 months, his phone business exploded. Retailers across Onitsha, then across neighboring states, began buying from him. His small warehouse became inadequate. He rented a larger one. He hired staff. He bought a used car, a modest Toyota that ran reliably. Chitty was no longer poor. He was becoming wealthy. 5 years after leaving Akwogo in shame, Chidi had transformed into someone even he sometimes didn't recognize in the mirror. He now owned 3 large warehouses in Onitsha. His import business had expanded beyond phones to include electronics, appliances, and accessories. He employed over 50 people. He had partnerships with factories in China and distributors across Nigeria. He owned a beautiful house in the city, drove a Land Cruiser SUV, and wore tailored suits that cost more than his mother's entire yearly income used to be. But success had not changed his heart. He still remembered the boy who was rejected at the gate. He still sent money home faithfully. He had built his mother a proper house with modern plumbing and electricity. His siblings were all in good schools. His younger brother was studying engineering at the university. His sisters were in excellent secondary schools. Chidi had become known in business circles as chairman, a title of respect for successful men. At only 28 years old, he was one of the youngest wealthy businessmen in Onitsha. But those who knew him well knew something else about him. He treated everyone with respect, from the gateman to the governor. He never forgot what it felt like to be looked down upon. One day, Chidi received news that made his heart skip. The annual New Yam Festival in Akwogo was approaching, and the village elders had sent him a special invitation. They wanted him to be the festival's special guest of honor, to inspire the youth and contribute to village development. Chidi sat in his luxurious office overlooking the Niger River, holding the invitation, and memories flooded back. 5 years. 5 years since he had left that village in shame. 5 years since Adiz had destroyed him at her father's gate. He called his personal assistant. Start preparing. We're going to Akwogo for the New Yam Festival. And I want to do something special for my village. The news that Chidi was returning to Akwogo spread like wildfire. People who had known him were astonished. The poor carpenter boy had become a wealthy city businessman? Impossible. Yet the evidence was undeniable. His mother's new house stood as proof. The money he had been sending home for years had lifted not just his family, but many others who he had helped quietly. Chief Okonkwo heard the news and felt a strange discomfort in his chest. His empire, once unchallenged, had been crumbling slowly. Bad investments, a lazy lifestyle, and economic changes had eroded his wealth. The mansion still stood, but it was now mortgaged to the bank. The cars were old. The influence was waning. He was no longer the undisputed wealthy man of Akwogo. And Adiz, her story had become a cautionary tale in the village. After Chidi left, Adiz had continued her pattern of rejecting suitors. One was not rich enough, another was not handsome enough, yet another's family was not prestigious enough. She was waiting for perfection, for a man who matched her impossible standards. Then, 3 years ago, a man named Chief Yuzo had arrived in the village. He was 52 years old, twice Adiz's age, but he was wealthy, or so he appeared. He drove expensive cars, wore heavy gold chains, spoke of business empires in Lagos and Abuja. Chief Okonkwo, impressed and desperate to see his daughter married, encouraged the union. Adiz, now 26, and feeling the pressure of age and the whispers about her unmarried status, agreed. The wedding was lavish, the talk of 3 villages. Adiz wore a wedding gown that cost millions. Her gold jewelry was stunning, and she believed she had finally achieved the life she deserved. But the marriage was a nightmare from the first month. Chief Yuzo already had 4 wives hidden in different cities, a fact he had concealed. Worse, his wealth was largely borrowed money and fraud. Within a year, his businesses collapsed, creditors came hunting, and he abandoned all his wives, including Adiz, fleeing the country to avoid arrest. Adiz found herself alone, humiliated, and penniless. The expensive items from her marriage were seized by creditors. She had to return to her father's house, but that house was no longer a mansion of plenty. Chief Okonkwo's own fortune had dwindled. The family that once lived in luxury was now struggling. Adiz, once the most beautiful and eligible girl in Akwogo, was now 30 years old, abandoned, and bitter. Her beauty remained, but it was dimmed by sadness and regret. She worked in her mother's small provision shop, a far cry from the life of luxury she had once known. The day Chitty returned to Aquago was a day the village would remember for generations. The New Yam Festival was always a grand celebration, but this year was special. The entire village gathered at the large square near the king's palace. Canopies were erected, local musicians prepared their instruments, women cooked mountains of food, and children ran around in excitement. Then, around noon, the sound of car horns echoed through the village. A convoy of vehicles entered Aquago, 5 sleek cars led by Chitty's black Land Cruiser with tinted windows. The vehicles drove slowly through the village toward the square, and people rushed out of their homes to see. When the cars stopped at the square, uniformed security men stepped out first. Then, from the Land Cruiser, Chitty emerged. The crowd gasped collectively. He wore an immaculate white agbada, traditional attire, with intricate gold embroidery that shimmered in the sunlight. The fabric was the finest silk, flowing elegantly as he moved. Around his neck were coral beads worth a fortune, marking him as a man of status. On his wrist was a Rolex watch that caught the sun and threw golden reflections. His shoes were Italian leather, polished to a mirror shine. On his head was a red, traditional cap adorned with eagle feathers, a symbol of achievement. But more striking than his clothes was his presence. Chitty carried himself with quiet confidence and dignity. His face had matured. The boyish features had given way to a strong, handsome man. His eyes were kind, but commanded respect. He looked like royalty. The village elder rushed forward, their faces glowing with pride. "Welcome, Odagu Chitty," they called him, using the title Odagu, which meant great warrior or great achiever. "Welcome home, our son." Chitty greeted each elder with proper respect, bowing despite his status. "My fathers," he said in a clear voice that carried across the square, "I have not forgotten where I come from. Thank you for welcoming me home." The crowd erupted in applause and ululation. Young men looked at him with awe and inspiration. Women praised him. Children pointed in wonder. In the crowd, standing at the back near the provisions shop, Adiz watched with her mother. When her eyes fell on Chitty, her legs nearly gave way beneath her. She gripped her mother's arm for support. "Mama," she whispered, her voice choking, Is that really Chitty?" Lolo Okonkwo's face was ashen. The poor carpenter boy in borrowed shoes had become this magnificent man. The universe had played a cruel joke on them. Chief Okonkwo, seated among the elders, looked like he might faint. He remembered the day he had allowed his daughter to humiliate this young man at his gate. Now that young man sat among equals, no, above them, in status and respect. The speech that shook the village. After the traditional ceremonies and prayers, Chitty was invited to address the village. He stood before hundreds of people, the microphone in his hand, and for a moment he was silent, looking at faces he had known all his life. Then he spoke. "People of Aquago, my fathers, my mothers, my brothers and sisters, I stand before you today, not as Chitty the poor carpenter's son, but as Chitty who learned that poverty is not a permanent condition. It is a temporary situation that we can overcome with determination, hard work, and faith in ourselves." The crowd was silent, hanging on every word. "When I left this village 5 years ago," he continued, his voice steady and clear, "I left carrying pain, shame, and rejection. Many of you remember. Some of you pitied me. Others mocked me. Some thought I would fail and come back even more broken. But I want to tell you something important. The people who rejected me, the people who looked down on me, they actually gave me a gift." People murmured in confusion. "A gift?" Chitty smiled. "Yes, a gift. They showed me clearly what I did not want to become. They showed me that I needed to rise not to prove anything to them, but to prove something to myself. They taught me that a man's value is not in what he has today, but in what he is willing to become tomorrow." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Today, I stand before you not to show off, not to boast, but to fulfill a promise I made to myself and to this village. I am announcing the Chitty Foundation for Aquago Development." The crowd erupted in surprised murmurs. Chitty raised his hand for silence. "Through this foundation, I am committing to do the following. First, I am building a modern skills acquisition center where our youth can learn trades. Carpentry, tailoring, electronics, welding, computer skills, free of charge. Second, I am establishing a scholarship fund that will send 20 children from Akwogo to university every year, fully funded. People began to shout in joy, but Chidi was not finished. Third, I am drilling 10 boreholes across this village so that our mothers and sisters no longer have to walk miles to fetch water. Fourth, I am renovating our only health center and providing it with equipment, medicines, and paying the salary of 2 nurses for the next 5 years. The village exploded in celebration. Women ululated, men shouted praises, children danced. Some people were crying. And finally, Chidi said, his voice rising above the noise, I am giving every widow in this village a monthly stipend for the next year. My mother knows what it means to struggle as a widow. No widow in my village will suffer if I have the power to help. At this, many widows in the crowd fell to their knees, raising their hands in prayer and gratitude. Others rushed forward to prostrate before Chidi in the traditional show of deep respect and thanks. Soon, overcome with emotion and gratitude, people throughout the crowd began kneeling, young and old, men and women. It was a spontaneous outpouring of respect and appreciation. Here was a son of the soil who had risen from nothing and was now lifting his entire community with him. The village chief, Igwio Keke, stood up with tears in his eyes. Chidi, my son, today you've shown us what true success looks like. You have made Akwogo proud. We hereby confer upon you the title of Okendo, the one who runs ahead of others to prepare the way. May your shadow never grow less. The crowd roared their approval. After the official ceremonies, as the festival celebrations continued with music, dancing, and feasting, Chidi stood under a large palm tree, briefly alone, watching children play. A soft voice spoke behind him. Chidi. He turned. It was Adiz. She stood a few feet away, and in that moment, the years fell away. He saw not the proud girl who had rejected him, but a woman carrying the weight of regret. She wore a simple Ankara dress, still beautiful, but nothing like the expensive clothes of her past. Her jewelry was modest, but her face still held that beauty, now tempered with something new, humility. Adiz, he said neutrally, his face unreadable. She took a trembling breath. I did not know if you would even acknowledge me. Why would I not? You are a fellow human being from my village. His words were polite but distant, and that distance hurt Adiz more than any insult could have. Chidi, I need to say something. I know I have no right to your time, no right to ask anything of you, but please, let me speak. He nodded. Go ahead. Tears began to stream down her face. 5 years ago, at my father's gate, I said terrible things to you. I measured your worth by your poverty. I mocked your love. I humiliated you in front of people. I told you that you would never be worthy of me. Her voice broke. I was so wrong, Chidi. So terribly, painfully wrong. You were worthy then, and you are 1,000 times more than worthy now. You had something I was too blind to see. You had character, determination, vision, and a heart of gold. I chose to see only what was in your pocket and missed the treasure that was in your soul. Chidi listened in silence. My life became a nightmare. Adiz continued, wiping her tears with the back of her hand. The man I married for money destroyed me. My father's wealth disappeared. Everything I trusted in crumbled. And every day, every single day, I thought about you. I thought about that moment at the gate, and I hated myself for what I did. She fell to her knees, right there under the palm tree. Chidi, I am not asking for your love. I know that is gone forever. I am not even asking for friendship. I just need you to know that I am sorry. I am so deeply, truly sorry. You did not deserve what I did to you. Please, if you have any mercy in your heart, forgive me. I cannot live carrying this weight anymore. For a long moment, Chidi looked down at her kneeling before him. He thought about that day 5 years ago. He thought about the pain that had driven him to success. He thought about the bitterness he could have carried, but chose not to. Then he reached down and gently helped her to her feet. Adiz, stand up. You do not need to kneel before me. She stood, her whole body shaking, her eyes searching his face for any sign of his feelings. Chitty spoke quietly, his voice firm but kind. What you did 5 years ago hurt me deeply. Your words cut deeper than any knife. For months, I could not sleep without hearing your voice telling me I was not worthy, that I would never be worthy. Those words haunted me. Adi's tears flowed harder. But, Chitty continued, I made a decision early in my journey. I decided that bitterness is a poison that destroys the person who carries it, not the person it is aimed at. I decided to use that pain as fuel, not as an excuse to become bitter and cruel. So yes, Adiz, I forgive you. I forgave you a long time ago. You forgive me, she whispered in disbelief. Idol, not because you deserve it. Forgiveness is not about deserving. I forgive you because holding on to anger would have destroyed the man I wanted to become. I forgive you because my mother taught me that revenge is for small people, and I wanted to be a big person. He paused, looking into her eyes. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It does not mean we go back to what we were or what we could have been. That chapter closed the day you closed that gate in my face. I have moved forward, Adiz. I have built a new life, and you must do the same. Understand, she said, her voice barely audible. I just needed you to know that you are always worthy. You are always more than enough. I was the one who was not worthy of you. Chitty smiled sadly. We were both young. You were taught to value the wrong things. Your parents taught you that money equals worth, that poverty equals shame. But poverty is just a temporary condition, is not a character flaw. Wealth can be lost in a day, but character lasts forever. He reached into his agbada and pulled out an envelope. Take this. Adiz looked at it, confused. What is this? It is money. Enough to start a small business, a good one. Use it to rebuild your life. Not for me, not to make amends, but for yourself. Everyone deserves a second chance, Adiz. She stared at the envelope, unable to take it. Chitty, I cannot accept this. I do not deserve your kindness. I was cruel to you. That is exactly why you need it, Chitty said firmly. I'm not giving you this because you deserve it. I am giving you this because I can, because I choose to help, because that is the kind of man I decided to become. If I only helped people who treated me well, what kind of man would that make me? He pressed the envelope into her hands. Take it. Start something good. Teach other young women not to make the mistakes you made. Tell them that a man's value is not in his bank account. Tell them that love and character are worth more than gold. That will be payment enough. Adiz clutched the envelope to her chest, sobbing openly now. Thank you. Thank you, Chitty. God will bless you beyond measure. You are more than I ever imagined anyone could be. Go well, Adiz, Chitty said gently, and be at peace. The past is gone. Today is a new day. She nodded, wiped her tears, and walked away slowly, looking back once to see him standing under the palm tree, his white agbada catching the evening breeze, looking like the king she had been too blind to recognize. Later that evening, as the festival wound down and people began to disperse, Chief Okonkwo approached Chitty. The once proud chief now looked diminished, his clothes no longer the finest, his steps uncertain. Chitty, he called out, his voice humble. Chitty turned and, out of respect for elders, immediately bowed. Chief Okonkwo, good evening, sir. The chief's eyes filled with tears at this show of respect. Here was the young man he had allowed to be humiliated at his gate, and yet that man still showed him honor. Chitty, my son, the chief's voice cracked. I owe you an apology. I was there that day when my daughter rejected you. I heard every cruel word, and I did nothing. I even felt proud that she had such high standards. But I was wrong. I raised her wrong. I taught her to value money above character, and in doing so, I destroyed her chance at happiness, and I showed my own poverty of spirit. Chief Okonkwo's hands trembled. You were standing at my gate with genuine love, with honest intentions, with a good heart, and we treated you like dirt. We judged you by your worn shoes and missed the gold inside your chest. I am deeply ashamed. Chitty placed his hand on the older man's shoulder. Chief, I do not hold any grudges. That day taught me what I needed to learn. It pushed me to become better. Sometimes our greatest blessings come wrapped in painful packages. You are gracious beyond your years, the chief said. Your parents raised you well. Your mother should be proud. She is the reason I am who I am, Chitty replied. Poverty did not make her bitter. Widowhood did not make her hopeless. She taught me that circumstances are temporary, but character is forever. Chief Okonkwo wiped his eyes. I heard what you're doing for the village, the schools, the water, the scholarships. You are blessing the same community that watched you suffer. That is the mark of true greatness. A man who succeeds alone has not truly succeeded, Chitty said. Success is only meaningful when it lifts others. The chief nodded, then hesitated before speaking again. Chitty, I must tell you something. My financial situation is difficult now. The mansion you remember is mortgaged to the bank. I made bad investments, lived beyond my means for too long. I may lose everything soon. Chitty listened carefully. I am not asking for help. The chief continued quickly. I just want you to know that wealth is indeed temporary. I learned this lesson too late, but perhaps others can learn from my mistakes. Chitty thought for a moment. Chief, tomorrow morning, send your financial documents to my hotel. Let me review your situation. Perhaps there is a way to restructure your debts, sell some properties wisely, and save your home. I cannot promise anything, but I will look. Chief Okonkwo's mouth fell open. You would help me? After everything, you are an elder of my village, Chitty said simply. That means something to me. Besides, helping you means helping your family, including Adiz. And I've already forgiven her, so why would I hold grudges against you? The chief could not speak. He simply placed his hand on Chitty's head in blessing, the traditional gesture of an elder, tears streaming down his weathered face. As night fell over Akwogo, the festival celebrations reached their peak. A huge bonfire was lit in the center of the square. Local musicians played the drums, the oja, flute, and the ojin, metal gong, creating rhythms that made even the elderly want to dance. Chitty sat in a place of honor beside the Agui, village king, and the council of elders. Young men performed acrobatic dances. Young women danced gracefully, their wrapper cloths tied elegantly around their waists, their colorful beads clicking rhythmically. Children ran around with palm fronds, reenacting warrior dances their grandfathers had taught them. Mama Nkechi, Chitty's mother, sat nearby dressed in the finest wrapper and blouse her son had bought her, a stunning coral lace with matching gold jewelry. Women who had once pitted her now surrounded her with respect and admiration. Mama Chitty, they said, you have raised a son who is bringing glory to this village. You have suffered, but see how God has rewarded your patience and your faith. Mama Nki smiled humbly. It was not me. It was God, and it was my son's determination. I only taught him not to let hardship destroy his character. Chitty's siblings were there too. His younger brother Chinidu, now a tall, confident young man studying engineering at the university, and his two sisters, Adana and Kayamika, beautiful teenage girls in secondary school, both excellent students. As Chitty watched his family, watched the village celebrating, watched children playing without a care in the world, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was what success really meant. Not the cars, not the houses, not the money in the bank, but the ability to change lives, to bring joy, to lift people from despair to hope. An old man approached him, walking slowly with a cane. It was Papa Ejike, the village elder who had given him words of wisdom before he left for the city 5 years ago. Chairman Chitty, Papa Ejike said with a toothless grin, do you remember what I told you when you came to me broken-hearted, ready to leave the village? Chitty smiled warmly. Yes, Papa. You told me that rejection is often redirection. You said that sometimes God closes one door because he wants to open a bigger one. You told me to see my pain as preparation, not as punishment. Papa Jike laughed, slapping his knee. And look at you now. That girl who rejected you did you the greatest favor of your life. If she had accepted you then, you would have been satisfied with being just a village carpenter, struggling to make her happy. But her rejection pushed you beyond your comfort zone, beyond your village, beyond your limitations. Sometimes our greatest blessings come disguised as our worst disappointments. Papa, you are a wise man, Chitty said respectfully. No, my son, Papa Ejike replied. You are the wise one. Many men who experience rejection become bitter. They carry that pain like a heavy stone, letting it weigh them down their whole lives. But you used your pain as a stepping stone. You transformed rejection into rocket fuel. That is wisdom. As the night grew deeper, people began to share stories. They told Chitty about his impact, how the scholarship fund had given hope to children who thought education was impossible, how the water project had liberated women from hours of daily labor, how the skills center was already transforming young people. One young man, about 20 years old, approached Chitty shyly. Sir, Chairman, my name is Obinna. I'm a carpenter, like you used to be. Chitty smiled. Sit down, Obinna. Tell me about yourself. The young man sat, his hands nervously gripping his knees. Sir, I heard your story. How you were rejected, how you were poor, how people looked down on you. Sir, that is my story now. People mock me. Girls reject me. I feel like I will never amount to anything. Chitty looked at him intently. Obinna, let me tell you something important. Your current situation is not your final destination. The fact that you're poor today does not mean you will be poor tomorrow. But you must make a decision. Will you let your circumstances define you, or will you define your circumstances? Sir, how do I do that? Obinna asked desperately. First, you must change what is in here. Chitty pointed to his head, and in here he pointed to his heart. Poor thinking creates poor living. You must see yourself as already successful in your mind, and then work every day to make that vision a reality. Second, you must be willing to sacrifice temporary comfort for long-term gain. I lived in a room with 5 other men, sleeping on concrete, eating 1 meal a day for 2 years. But I was investing in my future. Third, you must learn continuously. Read books, ask questions, observe successful people, absorb knowledge like a sponge. Obinna listened with the intensity of a man hearing life-saving instructions. Chitty continued. Fourth, you must maintain your integrity. Many people offer me shortcuts, illegal deals, dishonest businesses. I refuse them all. Success built on lies and cheating cannot last. And finally, you must remember where you came from and help others when you succeed. A successful man who abandons his community is not truly successful. He is just a rich man. Chitty reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card. Tomorrow, come to my office in Onitsha. I'm looking for honest, hardworking young men to train in my business. If you are willing to work hard and learn, I will give you an opportunity. What you do with that opportunity is up to you. Obinna took the card with trembling hands. Tears filled his eyes. Sir, thank you. Thank you. I will not disappoint you. I promise I will work harder than anyone else. I believe you, Chitty said with a smile, because I see myself in your eyes. I see that hunger, that determination. Go, make something great of yourself. As Obinna walked away, clutching that card like it was made of gold, Chitty felt a deep satisfaction. This was the real reward of success. Not what you gain for yourself, but what you can give to others. The next morning, as dawn broke over Aquago, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Chitty stood on the veranda of his mother's new house, sipping tea and watching the village wake up. Women were already at the stream, washing clothes, their voices carrying melodious songs across the water. Farmers were heading to their fields, hoes balanced on their shoulders. Children were playing, their laughter pure and innocent. Smoke rose from cooking fires as mothers prepared breakfast. It was the same village he had left 5 years ago, yet it felt different. Or perhaps he was the one who had changed, and now he saw everything through new eyes. His mother came out to join him, wrapping her wrapper more tightly against the cool morning air. My son, she said softly, yesterday I watched you with the villagers. I watched how you spoke to the elders with respect, how you encouraged the young men, how you forgave Adiz and her father, how you promised to help the community. And I realized something. What is that, Mama? Chitty asked. I realized that you did not just become successful, you became a good man. Those two things are not the same. Many people become rich, but remain poor in spirit. You became rich and remained rich in spirit. That makes me prouder than all the money in the world. Chitty felt tears prick his eyes. Mama, everything I am, everything I have become, started with the values you taught me. You taught me to respect everyone, regardless of their status. You taught me that honesty is more valuable than gold. You taught me that hardship is temporary, but character is permanent. Those lessons were worth more than any inheritance of money. Mama Nkechi smiled, her face crinkling with joy. Your father would have been so proud. Before he died, he used to say, "Our son Chitty is special. He sees with different eyes, he thinks with a different mind." He knew he would be great. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the village come alive. Mama, Chitty said after a while, I've been thinking, what if we start something here in Aquago? Not just charity, but real businesses that create jobs. A farm cooperative that uses modern techniques. A processing center for agricultural products. A microfinance bank that gives loans to small business owners at fair rates. His mother looked at him with wise eyes. You want to transform the whole village, not just help it. Yes, Chitty said passionately. Charity is good, but sustainable development is better. I want to create opportunities so that the next generation does not have to leave the village out of desperation as I did. I want young people to have choices. Then do it, my son, Mama Nkechi said firmly. You have the resources, you have the knowledge, and most importantly, you have the heart. Transform this village. Show them that success is not about escaping your roots. It is about watering them so that others can grow. 6 months after that memorable New Yam Festival, Aquago had transformed dramatically. The Modern Skills Acquisition Center was completed and operational. Young men and women were learning valuable trades, carpentry, fashion design, phone repair, catering, computer skills, all free of charge. The instructors were professionals brought from the city, and the equipment was top quality. The water project was finished. 10 boreholes were drilled across the village, each with solar-powered pumps. Women no longer had to walk miles to fetch water. They had time for other activities, time to start small businesses, time to rest. The health center was renovated beyond recognition. It now had proper equipment, a small laboratory for basic tests, a pharmacy with essential medicines, and 2 full-time nurses. People no longer had to travel to the city for basic health care. The scholarship fund had already sent 20 students to various universities, and the village was buzzing with academic ambition. Parents who had thought education was only for the rich now saw their children with real opportunities. But most impressive was the new agricultural cooperative that Chitty had established. Farmers could now access modern farming techniques, improved seeds, fertilizers at subsidized rates, and most importantly, guaranteed buyers for their produce. The cooperative had established connections with big markets in the city, ensuring farmers got fair prices for their crops. A small processing facility had been built where raw agricultural products were packaged and branded. Aquago Farms products were now appearing on store shelves in cities. Palm oil, gari, cassava flour, dried vegetables, all packaged professionally. The farmers were making money like they had never seen before. Young people who had been planning to flee to the city were now staying in the village, finding opportunities right at home. The village was not just surviving, it was thriving. Adiz had used the money Chitty gave her to start a fashion design business. She rented a small shop in the village, bought 2 sewing machines, and began making clothes. But more importantly, she had changed internally. The humiliation and suffering she had endured had broken her pride and rebuilt her into someone new. She was no longer the arrogant girl who measured people by their bank accounts. She became known as the person who would sew clothes for anyone, rich or poor, and charge fair prices. She hired 2 assistants, both from poor families, and paid them well. She became a mentor to young girls in the village, teaching them not just how to sew, but how to treat people with respect and dignity. One day, she gave a talk at the women's meeting in the village square. She stood before hundreds of women and shared her story honestly. My name is Adiz Okonkwo, she began, her voice steady but humble. Many of you know my story. I was once the proud daughter of a chief, and I thought my beauty and my father's wealth made me better than others. I rejected a good man because he was poor. I chased after wealth and ended up in misery. I lost everything, my marriage, my dignity, my father's fortune. But in that loss, I found something more valuable. I found wisdom. I learned that a person's worth has nothing to do with their bank account. I learned that character is more precious than gold. I learned that pride comes before a fall, and humility is the foundation of true happiness. She paused, her eyes scanning the crowd. Today, I am here to tell you, especially you young women, do not make my mistake. When choosing a life partner, look at his character before his car. Look at his heart before his house. Look at how he treats people, especially those who can do nothing for him. That is the true measure of a man. The women erupted in applause. Many were wiping tears from their eyes. The man I rejected, Adiz continued, the man I humiliated and mocked, came back and showed me what true greatness looks like. Not just in his wealth, but in his forgiveness, his generosity, his humility. He had every right to be bitter, to seek revenge, to watch me suffer. Instead, he helped me, he forgave me, and he blessed this entire village. That is the kind of person we should all aspire to be. After her talk, many young women approached her, asking for advice, sharing their own stories. Adiz had found her purpose, teaching others not to make the mistakes she had made. 2 years later, the grand opening. 2 years after Chitty's first return to Aquago, another grand ceremony was held. This time, it was the official opening of the Aquago Community University College, a fully accredited tertiary institution that Chitty had funded and built in partnership with the state government. The campus was beautiful. Modern buildings, a well-stocked library, science laboratories, computer centers, lecture halls, and dormitories. It was designed to accommodate 500 students initially, with plans to expand to 2,000 within 5 years. The mission was clear: to provide quality higher education accessible to both rich and poor. Admission was based purely on merit, not on ability to pay. Students from wealthy families would pay full tuition, subsidizing those from poor families who would pay little or nothing. The opening ceremony was attended by the state governor, traditional rulers from across the region, educators, business leaders, and thousands of villagers. When it was Chitty's turn to speak, he walked to the podium. Now 31 years old, even more distinguished, wearing traditional attire with quiet elegance. His presence commanded respect, not just because of his wealth, but because of his proven character. Your Excellency, Your Royal Highnesses, distinguished guests, people of Aquago, and all friends of education, he began, today we are not just opening a university. We are opening doors of opportunity that will change destinies for generations. I stand before you as proof that where you start does not determine where you finish. I started as a poor carpenter with nothing but dreams. Today, by the grace of God and through hard work, I can build universities. But I did not do this alone. My success was built on the foundation my mother laid, teaching me values. It was built on the wisdom of elders who guided me. It was built on the rejection that pushed me to work harder. It was built on the help of mentors who saw potential in me when I had nothing to offer. He paused, looking around at the sea of faces. This university is my way of paying forward what was given to me. Every young person in this institution will be taught not just academic subjects, but character, ethics, community responsibility, and entrepreneurship. We are not just creating graduates. We are creating solution providers, job creators, community builders. The governor, impressed by Chitty's vision and humility, announced on the spot that the state government would partner more closely with the Chitty Foundation, matching his investments in rural development across the state. That evening, after the ceremonies had ended and most guests had departed, Chitty was in his hotel suite in a nearby town, reviewing documents for upcoming projects. There was a knock on the door. His assistant opened it and returned looking puzzled. Sir, there's a young woman here asking to see you. She says her name is Adiz and that you know her. Chitty looked up, surprised. Send her in. Adiz entered, looking different from the last time he had seen her 2 years ago. She wore a simple but elegant Ankara dress that she had obviously made herself. The stitching was professional and beautiful. Her jewelry was modest. But what was most striking was the peace in her eyes, the genuine smile on her face. "Chitty," she said respectfully, "thank you for seeing me. I know you're busy. Please, sit down." He gestured to a chair. "How are you, Adiz?" "I am well," she said, sitting gracefully. "Very well. Actually, my business is growing. I now have 5 girls working with me, and we're getting orders from surrounding villages and even from the city. But I did not come here to talk about my business." "Then why did you come?" Chitty asked, curious. Adiz took a deep breath. "I came to say thank you. Not just for the money you gave me, although that changed my life. I came to thank you for the greater gift you gave me, the gift of seeing myself clearly, the gift of humility, the gift of a second chance." She continued, her voice emotional but controlled. "Chitty, you could have destroyed me with revenge. You could have publicly humiliated me the way I humiliated you. You could have used your wealth and influence to make my life miserable. But instead, you forgave me, you helped me, and then you left me alone to rebuild myself with dignity. That showed me what true strength looks like." Chitty listened quietly. "I also came to tell you something else," Adiz said. "I'm getting married." Chitty's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Congratulations. Who is the lucky man?" "His name is Dubum. He is a teacher at the new skill center you built. He is not wealthy. He earns a modest salary. He does not drive a car. He rides a motorcycle. He does not live in a mansion. He rents a small flat. But, Chitty, he is the most decent, kind, hardworking man I've ever met. He treats me with respect. He values my opinions. He helps me in my business without trying to control it. He is everything I was too blind to see in you years ago." Her eyes filled with tears, but they were happy tears. "I am marrying him because I have learned what truly matters. And I wanted you to know because I wanted you to see that your forgiveness and your example taught me how to make better choices." Chitty smiled warmly. "Adiz, I'm truly happy for you. You have learned one of life's most important lessons, that happiness comes not from what we have, but from who we are and who we share our lives with. Dubum is a good man. I hired him myself. You have chosen well this time." "Thank you," she said, wiping her eyes. "Chitty, I need you to know something else. I tell every young woman I meet about you, about us, about what happened. I use my story to teach them. And I always end by saying, that man I rejected became the greatest blessing to our village, and his forgiveness became the greatest blessing to my life." She stood to leave. "I won't take more of your time. I just needed you to know that you changed my life in ways money could never measure." Chitty stood and walked her to the door. "Adiz, go and be happy. Build a beautiful life with Dubum. Raise children who understand that character matters more than wealth. And continue teaching other young women what you have learned. That is how we change the world. One person, one lesson, one generation at a time." She nodded, smiled one last time, and left. Chitty stood at the window, looking out at the lights of Aquago in the distance, and felt a profound sense of peace. The circle was complete. The pain had been transformed into purpose. The rejection had become redemption, not just for him, but for Adiz too. 5 years after that first return to Aquago, the village and surrounding communities had been completely transformed. Aquago Community University was now one of the most respected institutions in the region, with over 1,500 students. Its graduates were known for their excellent academic preparation and strong character, making them highly sought after by employers. The Chitty Foundation had expanded beyond Aquago, replicating its successful model in 10 other rural communities. Thousands of young people had been trained. Thousands more had received scholarships. Hundreds of water projects have been completed, and dozens of health centers have been renovated. Chitty, now 36, had become one of the most respected businessmen and philanthropists in Nigeria. But he remained humble, still visiting his village regularly, still eating with his mother in her simple kitchen, still remembering where he came from. He had married Chinaza, a medical doctor who shared his passion for community development. They had 3 children whom they were raising with the same values Mama and Kechi had instilled in Chitty: respect for all people, integrity, hard work, and generosity. Obinna, The young carpenter whom Chitty had helped years ago now ran one of Chitty's warehouses and was thriving. He had gone on to help several other young men from Akwogo, creating a ripple effect of opportunity. Chief Okonkwo, with Chitty's help, had restructured his debts and saved his home. Though no longer wealthy, he and his wife lived comfortably and had learned to measure success differently. The chief had become one of Chitty's strongest supporters, often telling people, "I once had money but lacked wisdom." That young man is both, and that is true wealth. Adiz and Dubum had 2 beautiful children and ran a successful fashion school, training young women from across the region. Adiz had become a powerful voice for women's empowerment, known for her honest talks about pride, materialism, and the importance of character in choosing a life partner. Papa Ejike had passed away peacefully at the age of 95, but before his death he had told Chitty, "You have made this old man's final years joyful. I have seen you transform from a broken boy to a man who lifts his entire community. I go to meet our ancestors with joy in my heart." One evening, Chitty sat with his 3 children, 8-year-old Kachi, 6-year-old Amara, and 4-year-old Chikwudi, under the same mango tree where he used to sit with Papa Ejike. "Papa," little Kachi asked, "why do you help so many people? Some of them are not even related to us." Chitty smiled and pulled his children close. "Let me tell you a story," he began. "Many years ago, your father was very poor. People looked down on me. One person even rejected me and said very hurtful things because I had no money." The children listened with wide eyes. "I could have become angry and bitter. I could have used my pain as an excuse to become a bad person. But instead, I decided to use my pain as fuel to become better. And when I succeeded, I had another choice. I could seek revenge on those who hurt me, or I could forgive them and help everyone, including them." "What did you do, Papa?" Amara asked. "I chose forgiveness and generosity. And you know what I discovered? Revenge makes you feel powerful for a moment, but forgiveness makes you feel free forever. Keeping wealth for yourself makes you rich, but sharing it with others makes you fulfilled." Little Chikwudi climbed into his lap. "Papa, so helping people makes you happy?" Chitty kissed his son's forehead. "Yes, my son. The greatest happiness in life comes not from what we accumulate for ourselves, but from what we give to others. Remember this. Success is not about how much money you have in the bank. It is about how many lives you have touched, how many people you have lifted, how much good you have done in the world." "We will remember, Papa," Kachi promised seriously. As the sun set over Akwogo, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Chitty held his children close and felt a deep satisfaction. This was his greatest success. Not the businesses, not the buildings, not the wealth, but the ability to pass on values to the next generation, to break the cycle of pride and materialism, to teach his children that true greatness lies in character and service. The story of the poor carpenter boy who was rejected and became a blessing to his entire community would be told for generations. It would inspire countless young people facing their own rejections and struggles. It would teach parents to raise children who value character over possessions. It would remind everyone that where you start does not determine where you finish, and that the true measure of success is not what you gain for yourself, but what you give to others. 10 years after Chitty's first return to Akwogo, a young boy named Emeka, named after Chitty's childhood friend, sat in a classroom at Akwogo Community University. He was the son of a poor farmer, the first in his family to attend university, studying on a full scholarship from the Chitty Foundation. His professor, lecturing on ethics and business, asked the class, "Can anyone tell me about a business leader who exemplifies the principles we have been discussing? Integrity, generosity, and community responsibility?" Emeka's hand shot up. "Sir, Chairman Chitty. He is from this village. My grandfather tells me stories about him. They say he was once as poor as my family is now. But he became successful through hard work and good character. And when he succeeded, he came back and lifted the whole village with him. They say a girl once rejected him for being poor, but instead of becoming bitter, he became better." The professor smiled. "Yes, that is a perfect example. And what is the most important lesson from his story?" Young Emeka answered confidently. that our current situation is not our final destination. That rejection can be redirection. And that true success is measured not by what we have, but by how many lives we touch and how much good we do in the world. The professor nodded approvingly. Excellent answer. And do you know the best part of that story? What, sir? The girl who rejected him. She learned her lesson too. She became humble, found true love with a good man, and now she teaches other young women not to make her mistake. So in the end, everyone learned, everyone grew, and everyone benefited from one man's decision to choose forgiveness over revenge and generosity over greed. As young Emeka sat in that classroom, studying in a university that existed because of Chidi's vision, receiving an education he could never have afforded because of Chidi's generosity, being taught values that would shape his entire life because of Chidi's example, the legacy continued. And somewhere in that same village, Chidi, now graying at the temples but still strong, still humble, still generous, was sitting with another young person who had just been rejected or disappointed, telling them the same truth that had once saved him. Your current pain is preparing you for your future purpose. Use it wisely,